Hi class. This is the first in a series of videos which is going to help us learn how to do app programming in App Lab, and in particular how to use design mode and event-driven programming. And in this first video we're just going to learn a little bit about design mode and how to add things to a screen. So this is App Lab here, and something we've seen before, and I'm using the general App Lab, so I have all the different categories over here. Now you notice over at the left here there's a couple of modes you can work in. We're in this video interested in code mode and design mode. Okay, we aren't going to be using data mode, but from what we've been doing so far, we've always been using code mode, which is basically adding code to our workspace that we're going to be running. In design mode, you're allowed to add new items to your screen. Okay, I can click over on design mode over here, and it's going to give me a different toolbox, and it gives me a design toolbox. And this allows me to add things very easily to my screen. So when we make an app, we can use things like buttons and text inputs and images and screens and all kinds of different things. And what we're going to be doing in these videos is just working a little bit with buttons. Okay, to add an item to the screen, I just take that item over here and just drag it onto the screen. So I took a button and dragged it on the screen. Now, whenever you have an item selected, over on the right-hand side here, it shows properties associated with that item, which lets you do things like, for example, for a button, to give the button a name, to put text in the button, to color the button, all kinds of different things. And we'll do a few of those here. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to name my button. And what we're going to be creating here is a little bit of a drawing program. And when the user clicks on this button, I want it to draw a square. So I'm going to call it square button. Okay, and that name is something that we're going to be working with a little bit later. You can just leave it called button 1, but it's good to give it a descriptive name so when I have a whole bunch of buttons, I know which one's which. And then the text inside the button. And this button's going to draw a square, so I'm simply going to put the text square. And you see that showed up over here in the button. And down below, there's other attributes I can set for this, like I can set a background color, which I'll do. Okay, I'll click on this icon here, and it lets me choose a color. And for this button here, I'm just going to make that color. Let's just make it a kind of dark purple color. Okay, and I can also do things like change the font size. It looks pretty small, so I'm going to come over here and change the font size to maybe 20 point. Okay, so I think that's probably, and you can change different fonts and other things. That's probably all I'm going to do with that button for right now. Now I want to have several other buttons on here, and I want them to look pretty much the same. So I could drag out another button and set all of those attributes, but another thing I can do is just hit this icon over here that says duplicate, and it's going to make another button for me. And I'm going to do all the same things I did with the first button. I'm going to give it an ID, and this button's going to erase the screen, so I'll call it erase button. And cleverly put erase in here as the text, and really that's all I need to do. And there's two other buttons I want to do. The only thing this app is going to do is it's going to draw a square. Okay, so but maybe I can set the color that's going to be drawn. So I'm going to go over to duplicate again and have another button which is going to set my color. And I'll call this, and this will set the color to blue. So I'll call it blue button. And again, put blue in here. Might be useful to actually color the background of the button blue to make it a little more descriptive. So I'll pop over here, choose a blue color, and that looks good. And finally, one more button. Again, I have my blue button selected. It's important that it's selected. Okay, whichever one's selected is the one that you're working with. So you got to be careful you have the right thing selected. And I've got my blue button selected. And again, I'm going to duplicate it. And I'll also allow the square to be drawn in red. So I'll Call this guy red button. I will set the text to red, and of course, might help to have the color of the button be red also. Okay. So I've created those buttons. Actually, the screen itself, the rest of this screen here is also an object. I can click on the screen, and it gives me information about the screen there. And I might give it a name. And we'll see what those names are used for in our next video. And I might want a little bit, more fun color. I don't want to have anything too dark because I'm going to be drawing squares on it. So maybe I'll make it a yellow color. In fact, if you scroll down a little bit, you can actually give values for the yellow color. And I think yellow would be a combination of red, and I'll make it the most red, and green, and no blue. And hey, it did make it red. So I use those colors. And I'm going to use that 255, 255, 0 also later on when I want to maybe erase my screen. I might need to use that same color to erase. If you recall from our last homework, one way we erased the screen was we just drew a big dot of the same color. So I'll use that same big dot there. So that's a little bit about adding things to a screen and something about the screen itself. The important thing from this video is I can select an element and set a whole bunch of attributes associated with it. Now, right now I've got all these buttons, but they don't do anything. So our next video is going to talk about how to add events to those buttons. So see you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.